to word it very vaguely, but a producer that someone that produces for someone that I'm mixing for, and I think he was just he was fairly unprofessional with some stem stuff.
It happens.
Yeah. Like it was like a very obviously he just had to take something off the track and rebounce the vocal and send it to me.
Oh, is this the guy that like refused to do it?
And he was just like, yeah, he pretty much just he essentially told her like, no, just have like the mixer fix it. Just like
yeah.
Just like, dude, just send me the blank stem. Even you don't even have to rebounce. Just send me.
Yeah. Okay, ready?
Yeah. Posture. It just looks like you're like taller than me right now. I like the power dynamic. But Donkey Kong. I love that.
That's yeah, some of these usernames make me laugh, dude. All right. Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I'm your host, DK, and with me today is the host of the exclusive episodes of the Mixing Music Podcast. We have here James Dean Mixes, Jimmy Dean, James
Jimmy Dean Paris.
Jammy James.
If you want to play Warzone with me, Jimmy Dean Paris. That's me online.
Are you good?
I think I am. Like I win. I like get wins very frequently.
Cool.
And
I know
thought
I'm
that
not,
was
so.
I thought that was normal, but like other friends that like I play with and stuff, they don't.
Okay.
So either I'm being put in very easy lobbies, or I think I'm good.
Yeah, I'm trash at that game. So, but when I was in high school playing Modern, I wonder if it's an age thing. Because when I was playing Modern Warfare 2,
yeah,
I was really good on Xbox 360.
Really?
But you play Modern Warfare, put me in a Modern Warfare room now, I am trash. And I wonder if I've gotten worse, or if people have gotten better, or if it's just I'm old and I'm not getting used to the new controls.
Yeah.
I am playing on mouse and keyboard now rather than Xbox 360.
Oh, but I heard that's an advantage too. Although I will say it is very different playing like a Warzone thing. Like I was, not to talk too much about Warzone, but I was playing with someone just 2 nights ago, and he's really, really good. Like he almost was going to be like a professional Call of Duty player. So he's really good at that, but like Warzone, there's still different aspects to it that are not just like normal COD, and so like he was failing in that. But when killing people, he was good at that.
Yeah, like gunfights, sure, but interesting.
Anyways, yeah, I'm James Dean Mixes.
Yeah, sweet. Well, James,
that's my real name.
Welcome, James. Welcome to the show again. As a reminder, I'm going to do this pitch we do every time. The Mixing Music Podcast. We have exclusive episodes, and there's 2 episodes every single week. The free content has one with an exclusive archive. Those exclusive archives are from like 2 years ago. So if you unlock all of the exclusive episodes, which by the way, the exclusive episodes don't have any ads.
Yeah,
you unlock all of them all at once, and you can binge them. And there's like over 200.
Yeah.
So it like almost doubles the count of podcast episodes.
Yeah.
So go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive. And they're fantastic. The exclusive episodes are really good. They're shorter, they're precise, they're a lot more technical. We focus on talking about technical things because that's what everybody wants, is technical information. Well, guess what? We give it to you in the exclusive episodes.
Oh, yeah. And we've been doing mix breakdowns. So we've been doing some mixes that DK has done. We've been doing some of my mixes, and we're getting very technical and very specific on
plugins
what
and
went
settings.
into it. Yeah. Yeah, like some of them, like a few times DK like has broken down the chain that he did on a vocal for this song or on a vocal for another song, or the overall mix bus. So yeah, and we've been getting some really good feedback on that. So
yeah, and then because it's behind a paywall, I can share and talk about projects that I typically couldn't due to the nature of the bigness of the records, the nature of the records.
Yeah, and you get to hear DK. Yes, he is true colors, because he's a little more unhinged behind the paywall.
Oh,
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Not in real life, you're true.
Or me and James are friends. You know, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Anyway, today's episode is really interesting. We're gonna continue to relate it back to the music industry because I feel like we could go on big tangents on this. But I'm gonna talk about this. You brought this up to me, and I said let's do an episode about that. But we were on our way to, was it the mastering engineer's studio that we were on our way to? We were talking.
That's when it started.
I think that's when it started.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, basically it came down to James having an epiphany moment. And he realized, I didn't realize to do well in the music industry, the bar was set so low.
Yes, I didn't word it like that, but yes, yeah.
You were talking about how, like, and you gave a specific example. There's this producer circle that you go to where everybody comes together to make a beat.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and it's funny because out of the 5 or 6 people in this group chat, more than half of them at the very last minute are like, hey, sorry, I can't pull, something came up, I can't show up.
Yes.
And like
yeah.
nobody's able to stay on a schedule.
Yeah, and yeah, to get more context, it's just I was just kind of frustrated because there's been a few. It's happened more than I thought it would have. We would plan, be like, all right, we're gonna meet up this day, this time. Like we would have everything set, and it's happened so many times of like the day of, or like very last minute, being like, hey, actually, I can't do this. I forgot I had something tonight. And just like, I don't know, I was just frustrated.
And you also mentioned that the one other person who always was really reliable, he stood out to you, Mitchell Bashford.
Yes,
he always stands out because he is the most solid person.
Yes, yeah, Mitch. Shout out to Mitch Beats.
And he stands out because he's normal.
Yeah,
he stands out for being normal, which is hilarious.
Yeah, and it's just like it's a thing of like, because like, you know, when we say I keep a calendar and stuff, and so it's just like I blocked it out, so I make sure to let my wife know, hey, this night I have a session, so just don't plan anything that night, and just I make sure that everything is lined up so that I could just go. You know, and I don't have to cancel and stuff. And I don't know. It was just,
you use a calendar. You're a normal human being.
I talked to you because I was just very frustrated.
Yeah, and I think
getting
this
stuff
is
done.
This is interesting because I mean that frustration is pretty apparent. I mean, across the board. Okay, so one couple things that I want to preface before we get into this episode is, one, we're gonna overgeneralize a lot on this episode, so keep that in mind. And if you get upset, that's fine. That's on you. It is your choice to get upset. And just like us getting upset and ranting about it, is also, you know, a personality flaw of ours. We shouldn't let it affect us, but it does. And the reason why we're being open about it is because we hope, and this is the third thing, we hope that the things that we talk about, you can turn into lessons and decisions that you make in the future to empower you to do better in your own career, in the pursuit of your career, and increasing the amount of your income from music. So
yeah, the nice thing is it's all learnable. Like,
these are all lessons. You take these as like lessons.
It's like learning how to handle money properly. Like, for most people, you're not naturally good at it, but over time you learn how to get better at it.
Yeah, even the concept of there is no upper class Illuminati keeping poor people poor. It's more close, the closer to the truth. And there may be a little bit. Obviously, there's a few people that are parasitic in nature. You know, there are, but that's across the board. That is not defined by social class or income. There's parasites across the board, but in general, what's closer to the truth is probably little tiny habits and decisions that we make that we don't realize that we're making that keep us from getting there. For example, like we talk about this all the time, the bar is set so low that, and this is my tweet that we're going to start with, is I tweeted about this, and the tweet is, to do well in the music industry, all you have to do is, 1, reply to emails in a timely manner. And this includes text too. Mm-hmm. 2, actually keep the appointments that you make.
That's a big one.
3, finish projects quickly and without errors.
Yeah.
So that means you need to, when you are asked by the A&R or the manager or the artist to send stems, or by the engineer, whoever's asking to send stems, you don't fuck up sending the stems.
Yeah.
You turn off normalization. You send them correctly. They're all named correctly. They're all organized. Like, there are no mistakes.
Yeah.
And that takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of experience, and even a few tests, like test bouncing to see what it's like. Export your own stems and then import them into another DAW or into your own DAW, but in a new session, just to make sure that it sounds good. Mm-hmm. These are things that you learn over time.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you right now, like in at least in my level of playing field, which however high that is, it's very rare that producers send bad stems. Like
Mhm.
their mistakes. Like we're not even talking about like bad sounding. We're talking about like naming is off. The stems are not bounced to the correct time. So it's like
That's
they're all
always
moved to the
frustrating.
front
I
of the
hate when that
session. You know what I'm
happens.
saying?
Yeah.
Like all the sounds are moved to the front of the session, or yeah, things are mislabeled, moved around. So these small things that are totally within our control.
Mhm.
These are the small things that keep people that like. People will sift themselves out from future success
Yeah.
just because of these small things. It's not some big, you didn't meet the right person. It's even if you met the right person, if you can't fucking text back immediately, or you accidentally ghost someone because you're the type of person that has 350 unread messages at any given time,
Yeah.
even if you get the opportunities, those opportunities don't stick.
Yeah. And I think from what I'm experiencing on my own and what I am experiencing through, like doing some assisting for you and, talking to you about your progress that you're making right now, it seems like a lot of the big, because there are things in your control that you can do, but there are a lot of things out of your control, like the timing of when you meet the right people. But like,
That's out of control. Yeah.
but those out of control things, those things that are out of your control, I'm trying to think how to word this. So, and I was talking to my mother-in-law about this actually. A lot of in this business with, blowing up as a mixer or becoming a huge or like very credible mixer with big credits and like Grammys and stuff, a lot of those big blow-ups do happen as you've happened to work on the right project at the right time and that blows up. But to get into that, it's different. So like this is on the member exclusive podcast because we get to talk about it super openly, but you were talking about an artist and how it was a very chaotic scenario, but it was with a label that you were mixing for them. But you made sure that you were very professional because of that. And even though it was just chaos everywhere, everything was happening, because they remembered how professional you were with that one song and that project, they wanted to work with you further down the line.
Mm-hmm.
So like just like a matter of being very professional and being very reliable, even though in that very moment it might not seem like it is getting you a lot of traction, that is what stays in people's minds. Like when you have a manager or a producer in A&R and everything, shit's hitting the fan, everything's going crazy, they could remember you as someone who is reliable that they know won't fuck it up.
That's true. And I'm going to say this. We talk a lot about like philosophy and business skills in general on the podcast. People want to hear, how do you use a compressor? How do you use a distressor? When is the right time to use a distressor? Like, how do you EQ vocals to make it sound sharp? I'm going to tell you right now, those things, when it comes to making a career, I'm not going to lower the bar as far as like those skills go, because those skills are important. But there are YouTube channels, there are podcasts, there are TikTokers that make content about how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody talks about how, even if you know how to do that, or even if you don't know how to do that, the most important thing that people want, that they keep coming back for, is professionalism. That's all it is. And the bar is so fucking low. Like, it is unbelievably low how the bar is. I mean, people that are like in the music industry, like, especially, I don't mean to say this like this, James. So like right now you're in the you're much younger than I.
Oh yeah, I'm a lot newer in the game.
You're earlier in your career than I am. And at my level, there are very few peers that are unprofessional.
Yeah.
There's very few, because they get sifted out. They get left in the dust.
Yeah.
Right? At your level right now, there's like the sifting is currently happening.
Yeah.
You know
exactly.
what I'm saying? Like the wheat from the tares. And those people that get sifted out usually happen by their own choices.
Yeah.
The fact that Mitch stands out because he's the only one that is able to keep a calendar, it's hilarious to me and completely relatable.
Yeah.
Every single engineer's horror story, like if I like everybody from like Connecticut to Kansas, right? The from New York to New Zealand, all right? Everybody's complaints about engineers is rarely ever their ability to mix. It's about how they complain when asked to do revisions. It's about how they didn't give them updates, so they were totally in the dark about what's going on with their session.
Yeah.
It's about how they took way too long, and I was willing to pay more, but like they refused to take my money, and in exchange they took way too long.
Yeah.
And it's like insecure. It's almost never about, you can talk to any artist, it's never about the mix.
Yeah. Yeah, I
The-
remember in the mix, you guys were giving training about being professional, or about I don't remember what it was about, but someone was talking about how she hired a mixer, and like what her experience was with it, and it was bad, and not once did she bring up how like good the mix was.
And that's interesting because I didn't ask her to talk about,
Yeah,
like I didn't tell her beforehand, hey, like don't talk about the mix. All 3 points that she said, I was like, have you ever had an experience with a bad mixer?
yeah,
And she said 3 things, and I didn't ask her to do this. All 3 things had nothing to do with his mixing.
yeah. It was
It
like
was
lack
like-
of communication. It was something like he didn't know how to timestamp because he didn't know what find the tempo, or
Yeah,
just,
he
like,
refused to
little
do
things.
something, and he complained
Yeah.
about it, and he ghosted me, and he refused to do the revisions or something like that. And it's okay. So talk about the studio too. Like
Oh,
even
yeah.
at the studio, when we had an internship program, at any given time, we always
That's quite a
consistently
bit.
had about like 5 to 20 interns.
Yeah.
Influx somewhere in between there, fluctuating in between those two numbers. But you were an intern at our studio for a very short while, but tell us about
Yeah.
your experience there.
My experience, I'm going to try to say this without like sounding super cocky and stuff, but like
I'm giving you permission
I have
to for the
permission
purpose
to.
of the lesson.
Okay. I came out, I think 8 months ago is when my wife and I, Ashley, like we moved out here, and for me to intern at the studio. And if I remember correctly, I think it was within either a month or a month and a half, you and Lou already like promoted me to like runner. And
Just ridiculously fast. That doesn't
yeah,
happen.
it's just like it's super fast and stuff. And like how do I put this?
And asked you to be the host on the exclusive episodes.
Yeah, you guys like luckily
I threw you.
you guys
I've thrown you a lot of
threw
stuff.
DK threw me a lot of tests. He was playing me like a puppet, just to just so you guys understand how asymmetrical our relationship is. He was just no, I'm kidding. It was there. He was very healthy with his tests, so that's good. Yeah, it was just like a series of I just made sure and every big mixer you listen to talk about their time as an intern, they did same things. It was just like going above and beyond. Just doing the simple checklist that they ask you to do during your shift, and B, going like beyond that. And I vividly remember my first shift, and there were some other interns at the studio as well. One of the things on the list is to scrub the toilet, and so I was scrubbing the toilet, like all around. Like I was scrubbing the top, I was scrubbing like behind and stuff, just getting everything out. Because that's, in my mind, that's scrubbing the toilet. And I remember one of them walked by and he looked at me, he was like, "Whoa, you're going above and beyond." like doing this. And I was like, "Oh, I guess it's scrubbing the toilet." And even when like Lou came into the studio later that day, they were like all saying like, "Dude, James is like really going above and beyond with his cleaning." And in my mind, I was like, I was just scrubbing the toilet. like
Yeah.
that's something that's on the list.
That's on the list. It is
Yeah.
a requirement. We have a PDF that everybody gets a hold of, as well as it's posted on the fucking front door. Scrub the toilet, and we can tell when you did a shift because that was the only time the toilet was clean.
Yeah, and like, I always reorganize the wire, which again was something that we like talked about and stuff. If you ask Lou, probably what his biggest frustration with the studio was, like he would probably say the wires, because like even like within a day, the wire, like all our
Like the
cord
cable
boxes,
wrapping
our
and stuff?
cable
Yeah.
boxes and stuff were like all disorganized every time, and so like that's something I like made sure to do and stuff. And it's crazy how just by doing even the check requirements, like I still did. It's always good to do above and beyond and do more than just what's that if you're wanting to stand out as an intern. But even just by doing that, like it stood out quite a bit that I was just making sure when asked to clean the toilet, I full on clean the toilet. I didn't just do a toilet brush in the middle and stuff like that. I cleaned the bathroom. And yeah, I don't know. It was just, it's the only way I know how to put it is it was kind of easy to stand out as an intern. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah. The conclusion is the bar. You didn't realize how low the bar was.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that to like talk shit or something on like other interns or how they handled these things and stuff. It was just, I guess for me, and maybe it's different at different studios that are like they're super
I definitely think-
competitive in natures and stuff.
I definitely think that had to do with it, like the culture that we had. We were a relaxed studio.
Yeah.
That had to do with it. It was
And there
failure
is
for
a
management.
trade-off too, because like, because of that, I do think it was always a very good vibe in the mix. Like the interns did, like whenever they interacted with artists that came in and stuff, they did seem like humans and not just interns, if that makes sense. And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
like
yeah.
there's a trade-off, and I get that. I understand that. But yeah, it was just like a thing of like how like standing out and just making sure if I, for whatever reason, something crazy came up and I couldn't do a shift, I would go out of my way to find someone to cover it, and to make sure to let them know as soon as possible and things like that. And
Basics.
basics, yeah, and just and communication, just like very clearly communicating, and very, very like it's
And we promoted
sometimes-
you in so many ways because of it.
Yeah,
in
like
the
it was
studio,
very
outside
quick
studio.
promotion, and like the people that and other interns that you and Lou still talk about to this day, it was like similar thing. They did like they did their job, and they made sure to communicate, and they were just reliable. And because of that, it's like a thing, like if you're interning somewhere, they want to trust you to do more things. Like at a busy studio, they want as many people as possible who they can rely on, but they need to first know that they can actually rely on you, because if a big artist comes in, they need to know that someone's going to be there that they know they can rely on, not
Yeah.
someone that will make their studio, their name, and their image look unprofessional.
Yeah, this is human nature. This happened recently. A friend of mine, a guy, cheated on his girlfriend. He broke up with her. He cheated.
Oh shit.
He cheated. It was I asked him what happened, and I didn't know he cheated until afterwards. I asked him what happened before I fully knew what was going on. And he's like, "Yeah, she was just a bitch. It was her fault." And I'm like, "Oh, dang, that sucks." He kind of gave me this roller coaster story. It's like,
Yeah.
it's been going down. And I'm like, "Yeah, but he fucking cheated."
Yeah.
Yeah, it's never, and this is the problem, is that people don't realize, like all the people complaining, I never got my shot, I never had a chance. It's because they probably didn't deserve it. They were the ones that were in the wrong. They're just not willing to admit it. And if
Yeah.
you hear any sort of come up story, for example, like Dave Pensado and Jason Joshua has so many "I was the best intern" story.
Yeah.
All of these big engineers have "I was the best intern" story. Like they were proud of their attention to detail and their ability to beat everyone out as an intern in their respective studios.
Yeah.
Like, and these are common stories. You can find these on podcasts, on YouTube clips, on TikTok clips. Like even Tizio has a great come up story where it's like he was the punching bag. He was given a shot. He proved himself. Like every single big engineer that's winning right now has
Yeah.
proven themselves and stood out by being the most reliable person there.
Yeah.
And anybody else who doesn't get that opportunity, this is why the idea that like people are mean, but if you don't learn these lessons, life is more cruel, because life doesn't tell you why you're fucking up. You
Yeah.
never realize it. It's best to have an asshole friend that tells you why you're fucking up, because if you don't have a parent or an asshole friend that tells you why, like life will never tell you why, and you will live your entire life wondering, why the heck am I not getting these opportunities? When to everyone else it's obvious, but nobody else cares to even spend the energy to tell you why.
Yeah.
So it's like it's life is a bitch.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm going on a rant here.
No, you're good. I think it's something to point out too. It's, I'm trying to think. It's a conversation I have with Ashley a lot, my wife, and it's why, like for example, going to NAMM or just hanging out at the studio with a bunch of people, it's very, for me, socially taxing, like social battery energy wise taxing. And that's because, at least in my mind and my perspective, when I'm interacting with everyone, I do always treat it like, and I do always know in the back of my mind that almost every person that I'm interacting with, they could greatly affect the future of my career. That makes sense. And so, like, in a way, it is kind of taxing to think of things like that way, because then I'm just exhausted after like I was done with NAMM.
No, I get it.
I was done with NAMM after one day.
You know what?
I was like, I honestly was like, when you guys said it was time to go, I was like, let's go, I'm done. Like I was, and it was just like this thing, because I do kind of, in a way, like in my mind, I do know that like every person I'm interacting with, they could have a big impact on like the rest of my career, and because of that, I do make sure I'm like professional, and that I am reliable. Like when I talk to someone, or even if it's like someone Like a friend, he asked, hey, I'm wanting to charge for, what do your friends usually charge for producing? I want to start producing and putting together a package, and he's just like starting out in this too. I made sure though with him, like within 24 hours, I like reached out to my other producer friends and asked, I think are at the same level, and I asked, hey, what do you charge? And I was able to get back to him quick, and that's a good relationship. And like soon after, he recommended me for a mix for his manager who was looking for a mix. It's just stuff like that, and it's
And that manager ended up giving you a lot more mixes. Is that the story?
it just happened, but
Yeah, yeah.
now his manager is aware of me. They know my price, and they know that I get back to them quick, and that I guarantee will pay off down the line. And I don't mean that to say like, oh, treat every interaction like a transaction, because we're still people. We're interacting with people. It's fun to hang out with other engineers, but there is something that to be said about if you're reliable, and if people see that, that's what comes to mind when you're in a stressful situation, and for what, or you can't take on another mix, so you need to pass them off to a friend or just something like that. Like that's what comes into mind, is this guy was reliable and they were cool.
That's usually how people get put on too. I mean, think about this. Like, if Beyonce was working on a record that wasn't stressful and there was a lot of time, right?
Yeah.
Why would they hire anybody else other than her normal team? The
Yeah.
one time that you're going to get put on is the one time that it becomes stressful because one person's not able to do it or something happened, there's some beef, and all of a sudden deadlines are like the next day, and you are thrown in there because you are known to be the reliable person that can do this. And you are taking on the risk of someone else's recommendation. Someone
Yeah.
else is risking their reputation for you. And that is how you get in. Almost always. It's
Yeah.
never going to be like, okay, we have time. We just want to try someone else. No, like you're going to be thrown into a Beyonce session or some sort of top 40 session because you are the last hope. And
Yeah.
if you do any sort of drama, if you're not reliable, you're making the person who recommended you look bad. Their reputation goes down, so they're risking that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, like they know that you failed. So it's like failure is not an option. That's how it's going to happen. And I don't think most people will ever be recommended to be put in that situation. Like there's very few people out of the I'm being dead serious. Out of the hundreds of people that have interned for me, there's probably 3 names that like to this day at any given time I'd like recommend to be
Yeah.
put in a situation like that, because I'm not willing to risk my reputation over just some normie. And I don't think I think most people that have worked with me didn't show me their resilience enough where I knew confidently that they wouldn't fold under that pressure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's interesting that it's like kind of nepotism, knowing who you know, but you don't get big opportunities in a calm environment. They
Yeah.
come that's another common story, like along with Jason, Joshua, and Tizio's stories where it's like, we were the best interns ever. Jason Joshua talks about like how he like chops the pillow and like every label is face forward, things like that. It's
Yeah.
not just that. It's that every big opportunity that levels up a career comes with a lot of stress.
Yeah.
Like, because you are the backup. And the fact that they need a backup means that this session isn't going well. And
Yeah.
this song isn't going well. So they just need someone to fucking do it without complaining.
Yeah.
And that's how it comes, and that's when you get your chance, and that's how you blow up over time, and slowly you're we did an episode where I talked about, like, this is a month and a half ago, about Dale Becker's advice, because we often talk about like mental health, like making sure you have boundaries, not doing anything that you don't want to do, like if you want to stick to a 9 to 5, if you want to have kids, if you want to take vacations, things like that, right? And we talked about how Bob Horn talked about how he should have had boundaries way earlier on, and it like
yeah, I
affected
talked
his
to him about
health. He
that, yeah.
said, I believe that part of my stroke was partially my inability to have structure, and I was kind of like the bend over bitch. Like
Yeah,
that's
he
kind
was
of
working crazy
he was-
hours
he
and
was-
just like not taking. Yeah.
and he said that may not have been worth it throughout the entirety of career. He wished he like had more self-care. On the opposite end, Dale Becker's advice was people tend to put up their boundaries way too early.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you should work to a point where you don't put up your boundaries, but at the same time, like he basically mentioned that, like, if you want to level up, those first opportunities usually come really fast, really fiery, and you just need to prove yourself. And
Yeah.
then slowly down the road, when you are recognized and you become the go-to person, can you start setting up boundaries? People
Yeah.
put up boundaries way too early. So this is something that I like to think about. I want to go into the next section of the pod
for
here, which is So the bar is low. We want to be clear. And the reason why we bring this up and we continuously talk about this is because the bar being low is very empowering. We are always all about empowering and resilience. That's all it is, because those are within that is a choice you can make.
Yeah.
It's not, nothing that we talk about is like, you're born with it. It's old money. It's no. Like, you can make small daily decisions to create the type of self-discipline to be someone that is reliable, to be someone that is often called on. Okay.
Yeah.
This is empowering. Another
Can
thing.
I say some things too that come to mind with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cause I often I love thinking about A, what's in your control, and B, what is out of your control. Right? So for example, when we're talking about those, big career changing opportunities that come up, when that happens is out of your control for the most, right?
Yep.
But what leads up to that is in your control. You practicing and making sure you know the equipment in the studio is in your control. Reading manuals for all the hardware in the studio is in your control. What is out of your control is when you're running for a shift and the console, something's weird, they can't figure it out, and you could come in and change it quick and fix it quick, and they remember, okay, this guy is fixing things quick. We will not lose session time if we, for some reason, need him for a session. That stuff is in your control. What is in your control also is how good does your Instagram page look? How having a website so that when you meet someone at a networking event and you exchange Instagram, if they check out your Instagram page,
which is just kind of weird. Like in LA, Instagram is the main.
Yeah, it's like what's your
media.
Insta? That's just very, very normal.
That is the professional. It's not LinkedIn.
Yeah. So what is in your control is what they see when they check out your Instagram page after they meet you.
Yeah, and it's not about are you posting often? It's more about do you look professional?
Yeah.
Do you have a good headshot? The small things, because if you have a lazy meme thing, it doesn't look professional.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even I don't post an insane amount, but I do make sure it looks good and that people, when they look at my page, I literally got a gig engineering for a producer because he was going to interview me, but then he looked at my page and he said, okay, I at least could tell you know your stuff. And that was kind of all he needed.
Boom. Amazing. That's awesome.
And again, it wasn't in my control when that guy was looking at my page, but what was in my control is that it looked good for him.
Yeah. The bar is low. If you aren't successful, it's probably your fault. And this is the most empowering thing that I've ever heard, is power always follows the blame finger. I'm going to say that again. And I repeat this often during many different episodes. Power always follows the blame finger. So if you point that blame finger inwards, most people don't. 90% of people don't. They think the world is hating against me. It is some sort of systemic thing going on. And that may be partially true, but it doesn't matter. You blame it inwards and you try to improve yourself personally, you will be given opportunities. And in fact, I don't want to say too much about this, but if there is obvious systemic stuff going on and you still choose to point the blame finger inwards, more people want to see you win. And people root for you, which is the best thing that can ever happen, which is part 2 of this podcast here, is becoming the person people want to see win. Who is the type of person that you want to see you win, right? Let me say that again. We all know people in the industry, among friends, and it doesn't even matter, outside of our career, outside of the music industry. We were talking about this with comedy. I'm a big fan of comedy, and Shane Gillis hosting SNL, huge comeback.
Mm-hmm.
I love his humor, his comedy.
He's just lovable.
Yeah, my youngest son is Down syndrome. I love his Down syndrome jokes, and it's just such for some reason, he has positioned himself in the comedy world as someone that every comedian, everybody that is in the industry, wants to see him win.
Yeah.
But in other words, there was a podcast in that's unrelated, but he was trying to explain this. The host was trying to explain this. Nobody cares if Bert Kreischer or Andrew Schultz wins. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
But everybody was rooting for Shane Gillis. And it made me think about, and I'm thinking out loud, I'm formulating these thoughts here, how did Shane become the person in the industry that, regardless of whether or not you like him, he is someone that everybody roots for without jealousy, without reservation. How did he become this? Everybody loves him and wants to see him win. Like, because usually there's always people that are winning, but like nobody cares if they're winning, or there's like insecurity, or like there's jealousy and people like actually don't want to see you win. But like there are rare few among any industry where they're just loved by everybody.
Yeah.
And we're trying to break these things down. And I think, first off, this is important because nepotism is real and gatekeeping is kind of real. It's mostly practical. It's not to keep you out, but it's only to let people in that deserve it. That's what it is. Only so many people can, and it's only to find people that deserve it. Okay, so it is important. If people want to see you win, they will share your name. For example, I want to see James win, and they're very slow. It's not like I have this huge, like, James, I have a 9-to-5 job for you. That's salary. That's $200K a year. And I can't, it's not that. It's small little things.
Like you trusting me when you recommended me for the Sync Music company to mix for them.
Yeah. And
like things like that. Yeah.
You know, and it's seeing how he cleaned the toilet, it's like, it's these small things that kind of lead to the burgeoning of a career, right? So, you want to convince people, and getting people to want to see you win, I think, it's not because he has a baby face. Look at this hairy man's face. What is that? Why is that a comment? Someone commented on Twitter. That's funny.
Does someone just say
because he has a baby face. This is the hairiest baby face I've ever seen.
That is crazy. I usually get the exact opposite. People think I'm dirty.
He's talking about because Shane Gillis has a baby
that
face.
Makes more sense. Can you elaborate what about my face is baby?
but how do we get someone in the music industry to become someone that you always want to win? I think level 1 is the first half of this podcast, which is become someone really reliable, become someone that answers emails quick, that is working hard, and to layer it on top about it, not bragging about it all the time. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a difference. Like, right now, we're talking about a podcast. I'm giving you tips to how to be better. This is one thing. And I'm sure that I come off as arrogant. But there's a difference between silent confidence and insecure arrogance. There's a huge difference. And I think that is one of the big differences between Andrew Schulz and Shane Gillis.
Yeah.
Like, we're talking about comedy. I love comparing music to other art forms, including art, because we have a little bit more objectivity with a different art form. But I think that's the big difference.
Yeah.
Is that Andrew Schulz often comes off as super arrogant and kind of a douchebag, where like, and like Shane Gillis is just like funny and authentic, and even when he does come off as a douchebag, it's more like he's just joking and he apologizes for it. He's very aware of the situation. Like, he doesn't double down on things. You know?
And that's something, and I think this directly parallels with what we do too, is. I love that we're using Shane Gillis as an example for all this. I think he handled when he did get kicked off SNL very professionally and well. He could have gone on like this whole crying, I'm canceled tour and like something like that, but he was like, no, well, like that sucks, but I'm just gonna go make a bunch of funny sketches now. Like that's it. Like it's an interesting thing that like of all the comedians, and I guess this may be a hot take, I don't know. Of all the comedians who complain all day about cancel culture and things like that, he's had an actual example of, I guess, what people would call being canceled, yet he complains about it the least.
That's true. And even his reaction to it is someone gave him advice and said, just don't react to it. Don't talk about it. And he didn't. He didn't try to defend himself. He didn't double down on it. Yeah. He could have. And that's what every other comedian was recommending. Anyway, we won't get into that.
Anyway,
I think
it parallels though, like, sorry if I could finish.
Go ahead.
Like there is, I think, like there is bullshit that we do face in the music industry that isn't fair. Right? To a degree, it's not fair that mixers like almost never get points, like stuff like that
until you get to a certain level.
Yeah, until you get to a certain level. There are things that are definitely not fair, and like that do just kind of straight up suck in like how things are handled or in the industry and stuff. And it's okay to acknowledge that, or to like honestly every now and again it feels okay to complain about it. But it's about like still just like not letting that stop you from doing all you can to work with the system.
I want to generalize this to the idea of just in general, right? But there is a part of complaining and talking about how difficult it is. Like, my life is so hard. Like, for example, if I started ranting And this is the part of it that nobody really acknowledges or talks about. And it's very subconscious level. And it's a very narcissistic thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not narcissistic personality disorder, but it's a tendency to, everybody's a little bit narcissistic, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I complain about, I'm an indigenous, English is my second language. These are real things. I'm an immigrant. I'm an indigenous immigrant. My culture is being lost in Japan from Okinawa. I am brown and look Hispanic in America, right? There's these are all things that are very valid. English is my second language, and I struggle through school. I have severe ADHD, which is like funny because it's the podcast and it works really well.
It works perfectly for
I've
podcasting.
weaponized it for the podcast. It's my biggest strength, but. These are all valid, real things, but when I complain about those things and talk about how I'm limited because of them, the unspoken thing that I'm acknowledging is that I believe my hardships are more valuable and more important than yours. That's the unspoken thing that people hear. So when I hear someone else complaining about, I have this and this is my thing and these are my weaknesses, there's a subconscious thing that people don't talk about, which is you're acknowledging that you are refusing to acknowledge that everybody has a hard time. That your hardships are more valid and more important than someone else's. And that is so wrong, so bad, and incredibly unhealthy. And that is, okay, so we're going back to ways that people want to see you win.
Yeah. But I will this button say sometimes it just feels good to complain. And that's okay. It's about how it affects your actions outside of it. But every now and again, it just feels good to complain to your wife about how hard some things are, things like that.
Let me think about this. I don't.
Everyone complains.
No.
I guess it's my
yeah.
thing of it. Everyone complains, but sometimes it feels good.
Yeah, no, and I think everybody does complain, and because it does feel good, but that's really unhealthy.
Yeah, it's about how you let it affect your actions.
Yeah. And I think that more people need therapy, and real alphas do therapy.
Yeah, we're talking to you, Vin Fees on the. Vin Fizz on the chat. No, I'm kidding. We're not talking.
We're not talking about you at all. Where did that come from?
I don't know. I thought it'd be funny to call someone out. We're talking to you.
Yeah. We're talking about you.
Statistically,
I'm
most
teasing.
likely at least a few James out there listening.
Yeah. That's. I like that. Todd, we're talking to you, Todd.
Todd.
Yeah, listening to the podcast. But how do you become? And I want to talk a little bit about how do you become someone that everybody wants to see win, or how do you avoid becoming someone that nobody wants to see win? And I think the one thing that we're going to go off first is the negative thing, like things that you should avoid. I think people don't want to see people win if they're often complaining and if they're showing arrogance. So things like someone that's always name dropping all the time. It's a small, simple thing, but every time that you unnecessarily name drop, it's basically showing how insecure you are. Yeah. That's all it is.
And honestly, from my time in the mix, the people who I've met who have actually worked with the biggest artists did not bring it up at all. While I was talking to them, it was later on, we follow each other on Instagram. I looked at their Instagram. I was like, oh my goodness, this guy produces for Post Malone. He did not bring it up once.
Yeah. It's silent confidence. Yeah. Anytime name dropping or oversharing or talking about how good you are is a huge, obvious sign of insecurity.
Yeah.
Anybody that is constantly comparing as well, or it's all a sign of insecurity, and insecurity is a hard one to defeat. That is a very natural human thing that happens, and it usually comes from a place of deep insecurity and a desire to show yourself as superior because you don't believe you are. If this is the case, I would actually recommend a book called The Courage to be Disliked. This talks about this directly, the psychology and the philosophy behind it and how to overcome it. Really great book.
Well, yeah,
one
my
of those books.
mother-in-law's reading that. She
one of the ones that changed my life. But this is a normal human thing, especially with a subjective creative industry like ours. How you feel about yourself and having any sort of insecurity will deeply reflect the outcome of your career. And that's just the unfortunate thing. That's just how it works. So you need to learn the self-discipline to control that, to become aware of it and how you are communicating that subconsciously and how to become okay with yourself. Because if you learn to heal, if you learn to be happy and be content, I'm telling you, it's weird. The more that you become content with how things are, the bigger the opportunities you get and the bigger award. It's strange. It's strange. Another thing that this is positive things now. I have a list of 3 positive things, and then we'll go over more things outside of this. But like, if you are consistently hardworking, and everybody knows you're hardworking, like you're always on it, and I think that's more of a case of like consistency rather than like anybody can have a short burst of hardworking. But if you are, and this is hard to do, but if you are someone that is reliably hardworking for like a decade or half a decade, that becomes part of your brand.
Yeah.
This guy is known to be hardworking. So rather than burst,
can I say something real quick? This is a really quick thing. So before we moved out here, we came out and visited. Do you remember that? Like I came to visit and check out the studio.
Oh yeah, that was like I saw like 6 to 8 months before.
This still stands out to me. Nautic from the studio, very hard worker. It's like, but he was very quiet about it. I still vividly remember we were all talking in the Studio A, and he was just quietly going through the studio and like he was still doing things. And that's, for some reason, that still just stuck with me. I was like my instant image of him was like, oh yeah, Nautic's just a hard worker.
That does stick.
Being quietly a hard worker like pays off a lot. Because I was like, oh yeah, because he was just, and he wasn't even being loud. They were very subtle things, but he was just like going throughout the studio, just doing little things and like being on top of stuff. And even though I was just a visitor and I didn't even know who he was, it like stood out. Nautic is a hard worker.
Oh, I wonder if this is like a personal flaw versus something else. But
yeah.
Also, my favorite interns are someone that never needed to be acknowledged. For example, there's another guy named David who's like one of our best interns. We've talked about him.
Yeah,
and here's the thing: nobody acknowledges him. No other interns. Like David's a really hard worker. He stands out above us. David's very quiet and doesn't showboat. He just does his work, and we don't have to, because there's some interns that do a good work, but in order for them to continue to do work, we have to openly acknowledge that they're working hard.
Yeah.
Because they're in it for the acknowledgement of it.
Yeah.
But David, we never had to acknowledge it. And when it came down to it, like after like a year or so, like we rarely ever acknowledged him, and he was still putting in the consistent hard work.
Yeah,
anyway,
I had to acknowledge him for you guys.
Yeah. And because of that, we give him many opportunities, right?
Yeah.
So we want him to win. Number 2 is abundance mentality. If you don't know the difference between scarcity mentality and abundance mentality, I think this goes directly. I don't think it's possible to have any level of insecurity with an abundance mentality.
Yeah.
Like this, I think this is insecurity is the cause, and then abundance mentality is a symptom, scarcity mentality is a symptom of that root issue, right? But scarcity mentality is genuinely believing that we're all competing, and that every time James gets work, it's actually taking away work from me. And I don't want to see James win, because every time James is winning, that means that's taking away my ability and my chances to win. Abundance mentality is understanding that there's enough work to go around, there's enough money to go around, and that James's wins should be celebrated, so that when I get a win, it should be celebrated by everyone too. And this is more of like a perspective that you have on life that is very subconscious and comes from a deep level of confidence and security.
Yeah, like this is something that came to mind. It's I don't have a statistic for it, but there's constantly someone who just made the decision, I'm going to do music full time. There's constantly someone who just bought their first interface. Like there's always going to be new and more artists to work with, and like it's just like a thing of there's enough to go